This is the first book in a very long time that made me cry as much as I did while reading it. Hi everyone, it's Ruby. Welcome back to another video. This video is going to be a reading vlog for Queen of Vaults by Amanda Foody. Spoiler warning, I will be talking about spoilers as I go through this book, so if you haven't read Queen of Vaults, I would recommend reading this first and then coming back to it unless you want to be spoiled. Queen of Vaults picks up from the end of book 2 in the series after the events that have happened in King of Fools. Before I get into any more of the reading vlog for Queen of Vaults, I thought that I would just do a quick share of my thoughts of King of Fools. Just a spoiler warning, I will be talking about spoilers in the books. If you haven't read King of Fools or Ace of Shades, I would recommend going to see those first and then coming back to this video. So first off, my thoughts for King of Fools was that this book just emotionally ruined me. So much happened in this book right towards the end, like within the last 15 to 20 pages. So much happened. I enjoyed this book pretty much just about the whole way through. I gave it 4.5 star rating out of 5. In King of Fools, we follow the perspectives of Anne, Levi and Jack. And we follow them after the events of the Shadow Game from Ace of Shades. My favourite perspective in this book was probably Jack. We got to know Jack a lot deeper than we did in the first book. Jack went from being more of a side character in the first book to being more of a main character and having his own perspective in King of Fools. I really enjoyed Jack's story. We got to know him a lot better and we got to understand him on a deeper level. We got to see him go from helping Levi by infiltrating the Tauren Empire purely as a way to help Levi. But as the story progressed and we got to learn more about Jack and his past, we got to really understand him on a deeper level and we got to see his motivation shift towards taking down the Tauren Empire as an act of revenge for his past with Lullaby. I would actually say that Jack is my favourite character in this book as well, which is why of course the ending of this book absolutely broke my heart. Honestly, I don't think I will ever be over Jack's death. By the end of the book, after having his perspective and going through the story and learning about him, I was not prepared to say goodbye to Jack. Reading the chapter where Anne is being overtaken by Bianca's Omerta and seeing her raise the gun and shooting Jack as a way to break Levi's heart, that just left me sobbing. Aside from Jack's character arc, we also got to see the relationship between Levi and Anne be explored more in this book. We got to see them as they kind of were navigating and going down their own paths in the book, as well as trying to reconnect with each other as well. So it was really interesting to see them going down their own individual paths, with Levi focusing on his gang of the Irons, then Anne establishing herself more as a lord with her group the Spirits. Also really enjoyed some of the other side characters in this book. We had some new characters like Grace and Tok, Grace being a part of the Spirits and Tok being a part of the Irons with Levi. Anyway, that is enough about this book. Those are just a few of my thoughts on it. So for the rest of this reading vlog, I will be talking about Queen of Vaults. In Queen of Vaults, we have 5 perspectives in this book. We have Harvey, Lola, Sophia, Levi, and Anne. I started Queen of Vaults the day after I finished King of Fools because honestly, I just needed a break from King of Fools after I finished it because I was not okay at all. So I'm up to about page 58 at the moment, so I've gone through the first 5 chapters to have one perspective from each of the different 5 characters that we have in this one. So far, I'm really enjoying it. The first chapter already made me really sad, being from Harvey's perspective as he is burying Jack's body. And that was the confirmation I guess I needed to really come to terms with the fact that Jack was gone. And it just absolutely broke my heart having to start this book reading about Jack being buried. So with that, I'm going to keep reading the book and I'll see you at the next check-in. Hello everyone, how are you doing today? Just doing another check-in of the progress that I have made with Queen of Vaults this week so far. It's only been about 2 days since the last check-in, so I haven't made that much progress. I'm up to page 90, so I've read about 30 more pages, which isn't a lot. but my classes at university have just started again this week, so it's been a little bit busy with classes starting back. I didn't mention it in the previous video that I did, but I'm actually doing my master's at the moment in occupational therapy. So typically in a week where I do have classes during the semester, it can be quite busy, so unfortunately I don't find as much time to read, which is a bit sad. But doing these reading vlogs is motivating me to try and read a little bit every day, even if it's just 2 or 3 chapters, because so far these chapters are quite short as well, so that makes it a bit easier to read as well. Before I continue, yes, I am wearing the same outfit that I was wearing the other day. I have classes today, and when I was filming the other day I was just at home and I had gotten some new clothes in the mail, so I wanted to wear them. But now I'm also going to class today, so naturally I wanted to wear my new clothes as well. So that's the only reason why I'm wearing the same clothes. So we found out that Bryce was the one who actually wrote the letter to N. He was impersonating Lourdes. Sorry if I'm not saying her name correctly, I'm not completely sure how to say it. But we did just find out that Bryce was the one who wrote the letter. It wasn't Lourdes herself, so he was impersonating her to, I guess, lure N into new Rhines. New Rhines, new reigns, again, not sure how to say it. It was something really interesting. It was done just kind of, like when it came up in the book, it wasn't really done in a big dramatic way. It was just kind of mentioned as kind of like an off comment, which kind of took me by surprise because it seemed like a pretty big plot twist, I think. It also mentioned that Bryce was the one who kind of brought together N and Levi as well. It just seemed like a bit of a big plot twist, realizing, I guess we're now starting to find out how big of a part Bryce has been playing in this story the entire time since the beginning of Ace of Shades. So I think it's a really interesting plot twist, and I think it'll be interesting to kind of see where the book goes from here in terms of Bryce as a character. It was just a bit of a shock. I wasn't really expecting him to have been playing such a big part since the very start of the first book. I just thought he was going to become more of a main character in this last book in the series, so that was really interesting, I think. So I'm going to hopefully try and get some more reading done today, and then I'll do another check-in at the next one. But yeah, if you've read this book, let me know what your thoughts are so far around that revelation, because that was something that was kind of just really shocking, and it wasn't really done in like a big dramatic way. It was just kind of said as like a bit of an off comment, and then the story kept going. So that was something that I kind of had to stop reading and think about for a moment. So let me know what you guys think. I'm back with another reading update. I am up to page 231. Can't remember where I was up to in the last update, but I have managed to read a little bit more. Also, let me know what you guys would prefer in terms of the structure of these reading vlogs. Would you prefer a lot of smaller updates, kind of like how this one had been? Or would you prefer a shorter vlog with maybe fewer updates and having a bit more of a discussion with fewer updates as well? Let me know what you guys think, because I'm worried that this reading vlog is going to be quite long, and this is the first reading vlog that I'm doing, so I'm still kind of working out the structure of it myself as well, and kind of working out how I want them to be as well. So let me know what you guys prefer down below. Anyway, so a couple of things have happened. So first, we've now had Lola make her bargain with the bargainer, and we've got a name for the bargainer, Arabella. So we've had her do that in exchange for her memories with Tok, which was quite sad. Even though we haven't seen much of Tok and Lola's relationship in the previous book, I feel like we probably had an opportunity to explore it more in this book, but now that Lola has given up her memories, it's just sad. But it does leave open the opportunity for us to kind of go on this journey with Lola, as we see her kind of starting to distance herself from N as well, and she's kind of spending a lot more time with Arabella, and I'm kind of interested to see where her story is kind of going to go from here in terms of her relationship with the spirits and N and Grace and Tok. So I think that's a bit of an interesting plot point as well, even if it's a bit sad. We've also had N and Levi kind of doing that back and forth, so we think that maybe they're getting a little bit closer, and then they just go further apart again, which is just really sad because I really like their relationship and I just want them to be happy. You know, it's just so much emotional it's just so much emotional turmoil, and there's so much back and forth going on between them, and each time one of them does something to hurt the other, my heart just hurts, and I just want to like grab them by the shoulders and shake them and just like, what are you doing? Just stop hurting each other, please. It's so sad. Like, you know, we had the start of the book with Anne promising Levi to go to the first meeting with Harrison and the Chancellor, and then she doesn't go. And then recently we've had Anne and Levi making vaults together, and Levi, I feel like he was kind of deceiving her because he needed her power to make the vaults, using the premise of having secured her a pardon, when that's actually not the case, but her pardon was conditional upon her giving an interview. So that felt a bit crummy when we had that scene of them making the vaults together and him kind of telling Anne at the start that she had this pardon and he had secured it for her, but not really telling her the whole truth. Until they had finished making the vaults, and then Levi kind of went, oh look, I need to actually tell you the truth about this, the pardon is conditional. And I felt that Anne had every right to be like annoyed, because I would be really annoyed too, and I was annoyed myself at Levi. That's what I mean. We have this such like back and forth between them, and at this point with their relationship, like it took so much build up for them to get to where they did at the end of the very first book in Ace of Shades. And then in King of Fools we finally had them come together, we had them with their first kiss, and we had them actually start their relationship. And then of course at the end of King of Fools they're completely torn apart again with Jack's death, and then we start off this book just kind of not really knowing where they stand with each other. That's also what's keeping me really hooked in this book as well, just because I just want them to end up together and be happy, and it's just like with everything that happens that just gets a little bit more further away. I am really enjoying this book though, and part of why I am enjoying it is that emotional turmoil, because that's something that I really love to read in books. That's something that, you know, books that make me feel something. I always feel that a lot when we have, you know, two characters who it's always been very slow burn, and we have this build up to them getting together, and then there's always just something that keeps pulling them apart. That to me always keeps me hooked in a book, and that's what I really like in a book, is when it makes me feel something. So that's actually why I am enjoying this book a lot as well. Alright, so I finished the book and I'm in a bit of a book hangover now. I really enjoyed this series, and I'm actually really sad that I finished it now, because I didn't want it to end. Like when you're reading your favourite series and you're really enjoying it, and then you finish the last book and it's just kind of leaves you feeling so empty, because I loved this series and I'm so sad that it's over and that the character stories are finished, and it was just a really, really good series, and I'm very sad to have finished the last book. But in saying that, overall I would say that the last book was a pretty good wrap up to the series overall. Overall, I actually really enjoyed the last book. I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed the first and the second one, but it was still a really good book, and it was a good last book in the series as well, with the way that things concluded. For the most part, there was usually always something going on. There weren't any really slow or dull moments in the book, which is quite rare, because sometimes in the last book of the series things tend to drag out quite a bit, but I didn't really feel that that happened with this book as much. I feel that things were pretty evenly paced and there was always something going on. One thing that I did wish that we got to see a bit more of was the actual shadow game that Bryce had orchestrated at the end of the second book in King of Fools. I feel like the game that he set up was something that was always being talked about in the book between the characters, but we didn't actually get to see it play out as much. It had the rules with everyone having a target, but if you don't end up with your target's card, then you would end up dying at the end of the game when it finished. So I was actually really excited to kind of see how that game would play out and see how the characters went after their target's cards, but I didn't feel that we got to see a lot of that. I feel like a lot of the time the characters were more working towards ending the game, which of course makes sense, but I think I would have just liked to see the actual game play out a bit more and see more of the action behind it, and maybe see more of the target's cards being stolen as well. I think that the game sounded really interesting, so I would have kind of liked to see a bit more of that. And that's also something that was reminiscent of the first book in Ace of Shades as well, with the shadow game. Again, in the first book for the shadow game, we talked a lot about it in the book, but we didn't actually get to see it play out until right at the end, but even then when it did play out, we did get to see the whole game and actually understand how it worked. I just didn't exactly get the sense of how this game played out in this book, just because we didn't really get to see a lot of it. An aspect that I did really like about this book was how the author revealed how things were orchestrated in the first book by Bryce that were set up to play out throughout the whole series. We had the revelation that Bryce was the one who sent the letter to Anne back in Ace of Shades, a letter that he was impersonating Lourdes that eventually brought her to New Rhines. And then we also had the shade being cast over Anne and Levi from the first book that was done by Bryce as well. So it's interesting to kind of see how he had really stuck them together right from the very first book as well. So I really enjoyed that kind of link back to the very first book, because it kind of just solidified everything that had happened across the whole series as well. And I think it was just a nice way to tie back to the original storyline in the first book and to show how it was all connected across the series as well. In terms of the ending of this book, I thought that the juxtaposition of the ending was really interesting. At the end of the book, we kind of have Levi and Anne ending up in very opposite occupations from one another. So at the start of the book, you know, we have Anne, this Southside girl who's come to New Rhines, you know, very proper, prim. She's come there as a dancer. And then we have Levi in the first book as like this gangster and this lord over his gang, the Irons, and he's deep in Bianca's investment scheme as well. And then at the end of this book, at the end of the series, we have them kind of switch roles. So we have Levi working for Harrison, starting, I guess you could say, a political career. And then you have Anne leaving her position at the bank with her gang, the Spirits, and deciding to kind of be the lord over them instead. But we see her kind of use her position not as a criminal action kind of way, but we see her wanting to rebuild a lot of the history of New Rhines in the Ruins district. I just thought that was a really kind of interesting way to end the book. It was just a nice comparison to kind of have them completely switch roles from the very first book right to the end of the series. The ending of the book I thought was also very bittersweet. So we had Levi and Anne ending up together, which made me of course very happy. But then of course we have Levi dealing with the aftermath of having cast the shade over the talent that they tricked the bargainer into taking at the end of the book. So we're kind of left with him having to deal with the after effects of that, which is essentially having to be healed every few days so he doesn't die. It was just a bit sad because throughout the book we had him kind of talk about his thoughts and his desires to want to go to places outside New Rhines with Anne and just see more of the world, but then we have the book finishing with him now not being able to leave New Rhines ever, from having to deal with his sickness that needs to be cured, I guess, every few days. So in terms of the structure of the book, we had the 5 perspectives. We had Anne, Levi, Lola, Harvey and Sophia. I would say out of the 5 perspectives, Sophia's was probably the one that I enjoyed the least. I just didn't feel that I got as much from Sophia's perspective in terms of contributing to the overall plotline of the story. She had the omerta cast over her from Harrison, but I didn't really see this come into play as much. Something that I thought that we would get from Sophia's perspective in this book was seeing her healing from the death of Jack in King of Fools. However, I feel like her mentioning of Jack and any kind of remembrance that she had of him was kind of just mentioned sporadically throughout the book. It wasn't really a main focus on her perspective, and it wasn't explored as deeply as I was kind of hoping it to, and I thought that would have been really interesting just to kind of see her work through those few months after Jack's death and really coming to terms with the loss and remembering him. But I just feel like we didn't really get to see as much detail in that. It was more just scratching at the surface, I think. A perspective that I did enjoy was for Harvey, and we also got to see a lot of character development for him as well by the end of the book. We saw him kind of go back and forth between his love and care and devotion and his loyalty to Bryce, and then switching back and forth to joining the others to try and end the shadow game that Bryce had orchestrated. So we kind of got to see Harvey have this internal struggle throughout the book of going back and forth between Bryce and the others in terms of his love and his devotion for Bryce and wanting to believe that he was a good person. But then we had other characters around Harvey helping him to try and understand that Bryce was just using him and manipulating him. And that was really hard for Harvey to have to go through that struggle for this person that he loved so deeply and he loved for so long, and having to kind of realize that they didn't feel the same and they were just being used. Something else that I really enjoyed about Harvey was his pairing with Narinder at the end. I really like Narinder as a character. He was one of my favourite characters in the second book in King of Fools, so it was nice that we still got to see him in this book as well. Although I did like Harvey's pairing with Narinder at the end of the book, it did still feel a little bit rushed and maybe a little bit forced. And I think that's just because we didn't really get to see a lot of their relationship develop behind the scenes in terms of the 5 different perspectives. So I just feel like we didn't really get to see their friendship or their relationship as friends develop as much as we would have liked to. I think I would have just liked to see that being fleshed out a bit more, just so that when they did end up at the end, it didn't feel as rushed. But then at the end as well, we kind of just see them only starting this relationship now. And of course Harvey is still healing from Bryce as well, and that would have been a lot for him to be dealing with as well. A few of my thoughts on the final book in the Shadow Game series, Queen of Vaults. I really enjoyed this series. It's probably now one of my favourite staple series, and it's definitely not a series that I feel like is talked about enough on BookTube, on Bookstagram, or anywhere. I actually don't even remember how I found out about this, probably from somewhere on Bookstagram I think, but it's definitely one of my favourite series, and I really enjoyed it. So thank you for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys think of this video in terms of structure and having it being kind of a reading vlog. I'm still kind of experimenting with the style of videos that I want to do here on my channel. So let me know what you guys thought down below, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, if you are thinking of the Shadow Game series, I would highly recommend it, and if you had read this series, let me know what your thoughts are down below. Thank you for watching. If you did like this video, feel free to give it a like. If you want to see more content from me, feel free to subscribe from my channel. And on that end note, I hope you have a good morning, afternoon, evening or night, wherever you are in the world, and I will see you soon in the next video.